There are interesting stories all around us, and here's one of them.
Open your eyes, spectacular's right in front of you.
Oh yeah, this is totally unscripted, so we never know where this is going to go.
Dangerous.
This is the unscripted perspective.
Turn the volume
And
up.
here's your host, Phil Parker. Phil Parker. Phil Parker. Phil Parker.
Well, hello. It is another unscripted perspective with me, your host, Phil Parker. I'm just gifted and very lucky this evening because I have Natasha Randolph. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing really well. I feel very charged. I made sure I did my prep with my energy, so I just feel ready.
Awesome. So for people who don't know who you are and what you're doing, even though the description kind of fills in the people who are watching live, tell them a little bit about you first off, and then we'll dive into the questions.
Yes, so hi, I'm Natasha Randolph. I am the owner of Psychic Medium Natasha LLC. I do offer services both virtual and in office, as well as at home sessions if you are local to me. And for me, I just pretty much like to use my background as an intuitive mystic and healer to help demystify other people's healing and spirituality for them to become their best selves and connect with their gifts and be able to share that with the world. So that's what I'm all about, to create a safe space for that. I'm not really here to really tell you what to believe or how to practice. I'm just more so here to help you really connect to what is really best for you. And that's what I like to do along with collaborating with my client spirit guide team. And that's what I'm all about. Mhm.
Awesome. So being a psychic slash medium is kind of the world that you're playing in. And honestly, being 100% transparent with you, it is a world that I'm very unfamiliar in. So it gives me the heebie-jeebies when I hear people kind of talking about being a medium or a psychic. But tell me, I guess, the process in that. Like, what does that look like for you when you're meeting clients and things like that? What are people looking for?
Well, it varies because, typically when people come to me, they tell me that they may have a specific question or a concern, whether that's for themselves or their energy or something happening within their lives that they either want clarity or guidance or healing specifically for. And that's where I come in. So for me, I pretty much like to ask my clients, if you do have anything you want me to focus on or address, please let me know so we can do that, address it, dive into that. But otherwise, I like to pretty much see where my client is, see where they are vibrationally, just where they are within their life, and just help them get from where they're at to where they want to be. Of course, sometimes that can involve some harsh or bitter truths, but that's another discussion. I like to use, of course, my intuitive abilities, connecting with spirit guides, sp- spirit guides, ancestors, and soul family, as well as my background as a witch, and as a certified Reiki practitioner to be able to help people be able to create that for themselves.
That's awesome. So I guess the bigger question for me then is, um, where in this process do you, so the psychic part of it, like if I come to you, are you reading the future, the past, the present? Like what is the so this is the misconception, I guess, of psychic and medium activity, I guess. Most of the psychic medium activity that you see is glorified through Hollywood or through TV shows, or you just see this magnanimous person telling people that you're going to die in 10 days or something weird. You know what I mean? So you're it's kind of set up to be kind of mystic, but also a scary kind of subject. But and a lot of people like to defame the industry. So famously, one of my big interests is Darren Brown. He basically he traveled across the US and he pretended to be a psychic, a medium, evangelist, all that kind of stuff. And he actually did really well in all of those subjects, proving that you don't necessarily have to be one of these people to fool people into believing that. So I guess what is the when people are coming to you, if I say, hey, I need psychic services, like what are they really looking for? What is the top subject, I guess, is the best thing to ask for?
So usually when I'm being called to do psychic work for a client, it's usually for, either they want me to look into their future, maybe they have some concerns about a current relationship or situation with a possibility of someone becoming that, so romantic. Career, definitely money, that's definitely a big one, especially with the current financial things going on in the world, definitely. And then the main question I usually get is, um, how can I get unstuck? Usually people are wondering, I don't really know what's for me. I just know that this is not it. I just feel very heavy with myself and I just feel lost. I just feel like I'm running around in circles. Can I just have some insight? So it does vary person to person, of course, but those are usually like the most common things that tend to come up, unless there's, wanting to bring up either a very specific person or a incident that had happened. They're like, hey, why did this person react this way? It just came out of nowhere. Can I understand why this suddenly switch up? So usually it's things like that.
Would that fall into more psychology based though?
No, I'm not going to pretend to really be knowledgeable with psychology. I'm not going to pretend, but usually when I'm doing psychic work, that's all about me connecting to my clients' personal energies, so their actual aura. Occasionally, as a medium, of course, even if it's not an actual mediumship reading, sometimes I will get downloads from their spirit team, regardless if that's the type of reading that they wanted. So if that's for them, I will disclose that and share them with them. I'm not going to hold that back just because of the type of reading that they're paying. But that's where it typically comes from, is their energies, unless they have a specific intention or something they want me to focus on. And then I kind of connect to that.
Awesome. We do have some viewers, so I would like to remind the viewers that this is live. You can ask questions. The YouTube channel is also live, so there's a lot of opportunities to put comments there, and we will get to every question individually, which is exciting because we don't often have mediums or psychics on the show, and she is all in one. So there you go. So getting back to, I guess, the nitty gritty of this. So when people come to you for let's lean towards the medium side of things, is that kind of leaning into maybe lost loved ones, or where does that kind of lead? What path does that lead you down?
Yes, so mediumship is very specific. Typically, generally, it's going to entail connecting with spirits and sometimes channeling. Um, so that could be easily like deceased loved ones, ancestors, family. Sometimes pets occasionally come up, spirit guides, and then soul family. Those are typically the ones that I see the most. Of course, there are other types of spirits, but as far as readings go, those are the ones that I typically work with.
Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of expected. A lot of people, when it comes to mediums, a lot of people, that's kind of why I asked the question, is a lot of people would find that, loved ones just passing is is an opportunity, maybe because it's just recent, it's fresh. They want to maybe say their last goodbyes or any of that. What is the weirdest kind of request that you've gotten as a medium? Like, where that, I think that's the most interesting portion for me, is like, I'm all I know about mediums is these sensationalized ideals that you see on TV or whatever. But where's the deed to the house or something like that? You know what I mean? What kind of question was, I suppose, not to put you on the spot or call out any of your clients, but like, what was the most out there kind of request?
So I think the most out there, um, it's interesting because it wasn't something that they asked that was out there, but it was a simple, I feel, general question, but the situation on how the family dynamic made it crazy. And I'm just going to simply go into this. I was doing I was actually doing an in-person group mediumship, and I didn't know who it was for. It was just a big group, but it turns out it was for a family. And the actual client that booked was the mother of the deceased daughter that I did not know at the time that I was reading for. Now, the part that got weird was she at first wanted me to just try to pick up on the specific name that she wanted me to focus on. At the time, I did not know it was her daughter. She wanted me to basically tell her who this person was to her. Basically, like validation confirmation, just to see where my ability was. But the weird part was when I was trying to get a response from the daughter or the spirit, at the time I didn't know it's daughter, I realized very quickly that the daughter was trying to hide very specific information from the mom. So she knew she was passed, but she was trying to hide some certain things. So she would only tell me like partial truths. And it got to the point to where almost her mom was pretty much like almost interrogating me. And I was like, this is so weird. And it was just like, I get it, because she was like grieving, really wanting like the truth, but it was so weird because it was as if I was channeling the daughter. She was interrogating me, and then eventually the daughter just spit out the truth, and it was like, oh, that was it. Like that just validated everything. And I'm just like, this was the most weirdest. But they were also like crying, bawling, and thankful. So it was just a very intense, weird time. And I'm just thinking, well, I'm glad they got what they wanted, but why did the daughter put all of us through loops? Like, what was the point? So that was probably very weird for me. Um, I still can't forget about it. Plus, it was just very heartbreaking to also learn, like, oh, the whole time that was her, and then we got more specific information, but that was weird.
Wow. Yeah, that would probably weird me out a little bit as well. I've had paranormal investigators and all sorts of fun stuff on my show, and yeah, when the spirits are kind of talking to you, that's where I'm checking out. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just too weird for me. It's just too weird. I don't know how to I don't know how to deal with it when even the idea, it's never happened to me, thankfully. Well, at least not conscious, I can say anyway. I did have, when I was younger, I was unconscious for, I think it was a week. I was in ICU. In Ireland, I had meningitis. And I am convinced 1,000,000% that both my grandmothers were there, that they were kind of, I saw them, or they kind of made me feel good or whatever. But when I woke from my quote unquote slumber, it was like a distant memory. It was like it never happened. It was like a dream. But those kind of things are, I mean, they're pretty common from what I've gathered. I just literally had another podcast on here that deals with all the supernatural and paranormal, which is really fun that we're doing this directly after that. But it's always kind of a creepy situation for me when you start thinking, okay, these spirits are going to talk to me and all that kind of stuff. Have you have you ever had like one of those moments where, okay, I'm getting really uncomfortable. I need to tap out of this. Like I need to like not have this right now because either the spirit is either aggressive in a bad way or there's just darkness there that you weren't expecting about this subject, or you know, even go down that even darker road where maybe they were murdered or something like that. Like that's kind of that's a really scary situation to be in, and especially when the person, that family, might be coming to you having that conversation, because I can only imagine that people who lost loved ones even in traumatic experiences would want to maybe find answers or that kind of stuff. Have you ever gotten involved in those kind of communications?
Yes. I actually love this question because I definitely can speak confidently about it. I mean, some with mediumship, you never know the situation you're going to go into, but typically it's heavy, regardless if the actual session is intense or not, just because it's, trying to give validation and closure. But there has been some instances where I just felt that I just either had to stop or I didn't want to pursue or I didn't have to continue. Um, I generally felt that way in the beginning of my journey when I was still developing and gaining the confidence in my mediumship. Not of my capabilities and how, good I was with them, like my skills. It was more so about, okay, I don't feel safe, I don't feel comfortable, like I'm tired, like that type of thing. But it it was usually because of that very reason. It wouldn't feel good to me to connect. I just didn't, it's like I instinctively felt that it would take away from me in some way. And honestly, it was during those years where I kind of learned the significance of really protecting yourself, creating sacred space, and doing things of that nature. But yeah, I definitely didn't want to connect with anything that could possibly drain me or siphon off me, become attached to me. And there was definitely some instances where I would just have readings for people where maybe I just felt that, okay, I feel that we're at a good stopping point, but this is too much. And the only time I've ever got to that point with a client is if I've been channeling for over like 4 hours. To me, that's almost like running a marathon because it's almost like a long stretch because channeling does take a lot out of you. But that's the only time I really stop, is either if it's something I feel that could be potentially malicious, or I may just be drained, or I just don't feel that there is something good with that. That's typically what it would be.
Scott Spradlin just made a comment there. He's just said, "My friend, my colleague, and my mentor." I'm sure it must be good to have those kind of people supporting you throughout your career. That's pretty amazing.
Yes,
Um,
thank you, Scott. I know you watching.
yeah, thank you, Scott, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So yeah, those dark kind of things are never easy to deal with. Let's go back to the beginning. When did you realize that this was kind of an avenue that you wanted to go down? I mean, you're such a bubbly, happy, really infectiously lovable person.
Mm.
It's one of those things that would be the last thing I would ever think that you would be into, like meeting you like this, that a medium or a psychic. When and how did you get down this long road of discovery for yourself?
My gosh, yes. So initially, I wasn't even really looking for this path. I honestly just I discovered for myself where I became aware of my gifts really when I was young at the age of 7. And at that time, it was just more so of, why am I just having these experiences that no one's like openly talking about? Like I wanted to understand like why they were happening and what it means. Like, just understand the why and the answers. And falling down the rabbit hole, it just I just eventually just got more and more deeper into, how to really use them, because I eventually realized that I couldn't necessarily run from this. That's honestly what it was, is that as I grew up, I realized, oh, I'm becoming more sensitive. I'm becoming more aware of certain things that other people are not really in tune with. And then I realized that as I'm able to do certain things, I was able to tap in to either information or spirits or different energies that other people couldn't. And I didn't know really what the purpose would be of that. But again, as I just got older and became more comfortable connecting with these senses and these abilities, I came to the realization of how they could be useful for my own personal life and eventually found out that they could be a help for others. And that's really how it kind of unfolded, basically.
Wow. What what was the first or when was the first time that you helped somebody that was not necessarily part of a business venture or anything, but using your abilities? Like, was that a scary moment for you to actually go and maybe use these abilities for the first time because you weren't sure how connected or skilled you were at that very moment? Or have you always just been super confident about your abilities?
So shockingly, I've actually always been confident about my abilities, but I never, at, for a long time, I actually didn't feel comfortable sharing them. The first time I ever actually felt that sense of accomplishment or just like of helping someone, it actually wasn't a physical person. It was actually my first profound experience with a spirit. And I will never forget it. I was 8 years old. And at the time, I actually had a giant Clifford the red dog, big red dog stuffed animal. And I was 8. And at the time, I wasn't aware, but I was talking to a spirit that would pretend to be the stuffed animal because I was a kid. I was thinking, oh, I'm just having a back and forth conversation. Maybe it's just my imaginary friend. Because I just at 7 learned that I was sensitive. At 8, I started connecting to other energies and I didn't know there were spirits. Well, there was one day when I was 8 in the summer and I was talking to what I thought was Clifford and just having a back and forth conversation. I eventually realized that I was talking to a spirit and it was a man. And we were just talking back and forth about how I just felt sad, how my parents were just busy, or I was just like disappointed or something, like something of the sorts of that, like something small, but I just felt sad. And he was just more so trying to comfort me. And somehow in that back and forth conversation, I ended up comforting him. And long story short, it was that very night I learned that I was able to not only connect with spirits, but I actually helped him cross over. I must have gave him some closure as we were talking, and I physically saw him go through some veil. It looked as if he kind of like went through like a light, like a gate of light or something, like visually, and then he was just gone, like a very quick instant, maybe like a second or two, if that. And I never connected with him ever again. But I felt this huge sense of calm and peace. And that's when I realized, okay, there's other things out there.
Wow. That um wow, yeah, that kind of reminds me of that movie, the TV show Medium, actually. That's kind of what she does the whole time. Or Ghost Whisperer is the same kind of vibe, helping people onto the next worlds. Don't go watch that show. I mean, it's infectious and it's stupid TV, but it'll only undermine your field of being awesome. Amy is on the stream and she has asked the question: have you always known you had this gift, and how did you discover you had it? Now, similar to kind of where we were going with it, but um, I guess, is that your moment of discovery, the experience you just had?
Shockingly, no. The first ever experience, honestly, was through a dream visitation. Um,
Wow.
because I didn't know at the time, but I basically had a spirit visited me and basically gave me a huge download of all these big words. And I'm going to tell you, at the time when I was 7, I could not pronounce. I was actually having stuttering issues. Like I genuinely could not pronounce or even write. Like it was just not my strong suit reading any of that. So I had a dream of all these big words like premonition, meditation, channeling it. And I could remember like almost as if it was like a photographic memory for whatever reason to for me to remember that dream. I remember exactly how to spell it. And I didn't know how to read it, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna write it down. The second I woke up, I wrote it down. And then I snuck onto my dad's computer and tried to, what does this mean? And then I found out, oh, interesting. And I realized that's what I'm experiencing. So that was the first time I understood because after that dream, those words were telling me those are the words of what you are experiencing, the premonition, where it's like a deja vu and then it happens, or I think I'm having a daydream, but that was really my visions like starting. So it was just like slowly becoming aware, but being told this is what's happening was basically what it was.
That's, I mean, for me, that would just be bizarre. I don't know how I would handle that kind of situation. Amy, thank you for that question, by the way. I appreciate you joining the stream. It's such an amazing and eye-opening experience having a conversation with someone like you because there is so many preconceptions of what your field does, both professionally and non-professionally, I suppose. And how it kind of comes about. So really, this is the unscripted perspective is unscripted conversation, which is what we're having now. I haven't prepared any questions or anything like that, but it's also shifting people's perspective on fields exactly like this. Because there's so many, like we already spoke about, there's so many like Hollywood things that are going on that would maybe give someone the incorrect idea of what it is you do on a day-to-day basis. And being as it's your business, what are the biggest hurdles for you to overcome, I suppose, as far as the stereotypical stuff that you would have to maybe water down for people who are coming to you as clients?
My goodness. Well, I guess of course the first thing would be that I'm like, just I guess spitting random things and like general things. Um, just pretty much like spitting like specific stories like over and over again, like as if I don't know what I'm talking about, um or the famous, oh, you must be high all the time, or something, like I've heard some outrageous claims, from all walks of life, and I don't
Doing
judge,
mushrooms all
but
the time. Yeah, that's probably what it is.
yeah, like, oh, well, you must be like seeing stuff if you on that stuff, It's like I'm very disciplined about being clear-minded because I want to make sure that, nothing's influencing me with this. So like that's something I'm like very strict about. So yeah, that's typically like, the worst of it I would hear, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think the fear of the unknown is one of the biggest things that people have to overcome when it comes to something like this, because we're kind of dealing with it right now with the extraterrestrial or non-extraterrestrial sightings that are being unveiled by government secret documents that are not so secret anymore, and all that kind of stuff that's happening right now. But I think when it comes to stuff that is here, that is something that would be a day-to-day thing, like somebody who has passed trying to communicate with you, or even just knowing something about somebody that you've never met before, that is a very creepy thing to overcome. Has that ever been like one of your stumbling blocks, I suppose? Because having a conversation with you, even though you're a delightful human being and this is a great conversation, the thing that would, I suppose, put me in a uncomfortable situation would be if you all of a sudden just hit the nail on the head and you knew everything about, like, oh yeah, that you did this and you had this for breakfast, and tomorrow you're going to have a car accident. It's going to be okay though, because it's only going to be a fender bender. And then this all transpires, and then they come back to you, or they had supposedly had an appointment with you, and then they cancel because they were just creeped out by that.
See, this is where it comes down to honestly perspective. Like what is chaotic for the fly, is normal for the spider. It's just honestly what you were talking about, that kind of like that on edge, like on the head, like kind of like whoa, like to me, that's like my standard, like normalcy. So I'm just always like, I just give a moment to pause, let them take it in and process it, because I'm just like, I'm just here. Like, let me know when you're ready. I'm here to, like, just help you from where you're at. But typically, it's like, if I'm connecting with your energy, it's almost as if I'm like reading like a book, and I'm just like flipping through the pages, like, okay, let's see what this is. Skim read it. Okay, let's generally tell them what this is, and then if we want some specifics, we can get into some chapters or whatever of this. But that's what I live for. Like, it's not creepy to me, but I can always tell when they're always like on edge, or they're like holding their
Mm.
breath, like I can always feel that, especially as an intuitive empath and psychic medium. It's almost like that thickness in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott just said readings can be tough, painful even. So, that is not. I mean, that's very believable. I'm sure it is. Something that I did when I was younger. I did study a little bit of psychology and things, and I was able to kind of not do readings. It's not really a reading. It's more like kind of knowing someone's personality. It's not any of that. And some of my best friends, I've lost friends and I've gained friends from this because it was pretty on the money. I could pretty much say, hey, you're this kind of person and you're afraid of this and you have this kind of personality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not something that's anything that related to what you do. It's more of a kind of more down the path of Darren Brown and these people who are mentalists that can kind of read people that way. And so I remember Quiva, if you're out there, one of my close friends from home in Ireland, we were sitting down and we had this conversation, and she, at the end of it, she just went upstairs and grabbed her diary and just threw it at me and said, you can just read that because you pretty much know everything about me. So that is very different to the experience of saying, hey, so I don't want you to worry, but tomorrow this thing might happen. It could be uncomfortable. It could be something that you're not going to like, but I'm preparing you for this. And then that's, again, it's just approaching the subject. Like Scott's saying, it's like that awkward moment. It's like telling someone they're smelly or something. You know what I mean? Well, so, when you enter the room, we kind of know you're coming in the room before you get there. It's like, it's one of those awkward conversations. You know what I mean? So just remind everyone, there is opportunities for questions. If just like Amy and Scott, who's watching, thank you so much. And we do have a ticker, which is, I love technology nowadays. It looks like one of those like news bulletins, except it just says ask questions. We're live. It's just I always find amusement in the strangest of things. So I guess the next question I have is, so you've been doing this for so long. So you've done it through COVID, I imagine. How close do you have to be to the person? Can you do it over Zoom? Can you do it from a phone call? Like, what are the limitations to I was gonna say what are the limitations to your powers, but that sounds like you're like one of the Avengers. But what are the limitations to your abilities? Yeah, exactly. Doctor Strange kind of stuff. What are the limitations to the abilities that you have?
So I like this question a lot, because that's actually the first thing people think of is, does distance really matter? And shockingly, just to let you know, when I first started doing readings for people, like at all, I did not feel comfortable talking to people face to face. Like I did not. So I actually started off typing, like messaging people like through that, and that was long distance. I would be talking to people like in the UK, and I'm in the US, or like they're like in Australia or like wherever. So that's where I started. And now that's like pretty much like my full time like career and everything, I do like Zoom and phone call, or they can come to my office, or if they live close enough, or if it's possible, I can also travel to their location. Um, but distance isn't really a factor. I would say it's mostly the main concern is, can I really prepare myself to be present, and to be receptive to be able to do the work? Because, that's really where it boils down to, honestly.
Um, well, Amy, who's still watching, thank you, Amy, has just asked, how do we being the clients and the people who are interested in the amazing you, book a session with you? How do we go about that? What is the we're going to go through this at the very end as well, but just because Amy may not be able to stay till the end of this, how do we book a session with you? How do people, what's that process look like? Is there a form? Do you have an awkward phone call, like asking questions, or how does that look?
Yes, so there's only one way to book with me. You have to book through my website, which is www.psychicmediumnatasha.com. And basically, you could either go to my services and click on the type of service, either private or group or virtual, in office or at home sessions. You click one of them, and then you can hit book now. So you can hit book now anywhere on my website. That will take you to my automatic booking scheduling page. From there, you would basically scroll down to the type of service that you would like on the menu, click on that, click the day and time that works for you, and then you would basically fill out your information, like your contact information or anything like that, like some forms. And then, of course, send payment through there. My payment processor is automatic through my booking, which is just Stripe, or just any really like card payments, but I don't use Cash App or PayPal. I do not use those. The only way to book and pay is through my automatic booking through my website. Okay.
Okay, perfect. I hope that answers your question, Amy. Justine, thank you for joining as well. Appreciate you being on the stream. That kind of leads me into another question. The LGBTQ community, people who are conflicted about their sexuality, is that something that you deal with a lot? Because I know it is something that is a major topic right now, and sometimes it's a inner battle for people to really kind of come to terms with these feelings and things that are going on inside them that they don't understand. Is like, because spirituality and that is something that you do people ever approach you and kind of seek guidance in that respect?
So the only time that in any way kind of comes up in my work is usually if someone is really trying to heal maybe some pain or wounds or trauma surrounding that. So whether that's some type of
Mm.
abuse or some type of mindset, or just trying to embrace more of maybe their femininity, like there's various instances, but usually it's some form of healing surrounding that, is usually when it comes up with me, as an intuitive healer. So that's usually where I see it when they come to me.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's just that subject is huge right now, and being the intuitive healer that you are, and what you deal with on a daily basis, either being a medium or a psychic, it's helping people kind of deal with that inner turmoil and figuring out how to kind of make that step forward, or just figuring out if these are actual legitimate things that are going on in them, or do they need to seek psychological help versus anything else? Because it is a tough subject for a lot of people, you know. Um, so going into an even more sensitive subject, I know because of what you deal with, I'm sure religion comes up quite a bit. How is that how is that overcome, or do you find that people who kind of approach you are kind of already at that point where they want to, maybe the spirituality and the medium side is just kind of walking hand in hand with religion, maybe, or where are the objections or I guess things that go with that for you?
Yeah, so this is where it always gets interesting for me because I definitely connect to all walks of life. You know, some of them can be Christian, some of them may actually be spiritual or pagan or Buddhist. I've genuinely seen all different types of people with different beliefs. And typically, sometimes, well, most of the time when religion comes up, it'll usually be something along the lines of, is this really for me? Should I really be pursuing this? Or what should I be doing about this? It's just been something I've been kind of doing, but I don't really know if it's, like if I should be continuing on this or carrying on the tradition. So usually it's things like that, or maybe they're questioning their faith after a loss of someone or something devastating, so they could be questioning their faith. So usually that's when it pops up, and I'll usually, um, I always let people know that regardless of where they're at on their journey, I never judge or try to convince them ever what to believe or how to practice. That's always something I'm very specific on with my language.
Right, right. Because it is one of those sensitive subjects, and evangelism is a totally different field, I guess. And you don't want to, I guess, convince people to believe or not believe in anything just because of an experience or a conversation, I guess, that you're having. Um, I guess the biggest thing for me is how how is it that a average person like myself, we're going through, like, for me, I'm going through some stuff right now. I'm trying to find meaning. I'm trying to find a new career path. I'm trying to find all these things. Being a psychic, um, do you help people in that respect, like the career side of your life? Like, are you, I mean, you're not a tarot reader or anything, but like, are you guiding people's choices necessarily, or how does that, because I mean, being a psychic, you're going to get every question, and you're also going to have the funny guys going, well, you know why I'm here, shouldn't you? Should know why I'm here because you would have seen me already coming, and all this kind of weird stuff. People are being the funny people, but like, it's always interesting to me because um seeing the quote unquote seeing the future isn't necessarily what a psychic is or what a psychic does, but it is tied into some of that. So it's like,
Mhm.
um, just because you're psychic doesn't mean that you can, because I'm sure the last thing you would be doing right now, if you could see the future, is hanging out and slumming it with me. You probably be winning that $1.1 billion that's up for grabs on the
Or
Mega
so
Millions
you
right now.
think.
Yeah, you know what I'm
But
saying?
I
So,
loved this question though. Like I definitely know what you're getting about. So the way I'm gonna say this is, believe it or not, um, when you're more so connecting with the future, that's definitely your clairvoyance, your clear, intuitive sight, unless it's more like a download where it's like a thought or you just suddenly know of it. But usually it's your clairvoyance, and that's was the very first ability I ever connected with. So that's actually like my very strong foundation. So I have very strong confidence with that. And the way I will word this is that the way I go about any type of future work, which again is kind of a comfort for me, is I will say it like this. it's as a clairvoyant, I can see the path ahead, basically like a horizon. And I will tell you, okay, based on where you're at, I can see some doors, but based on what you choose, the path may change. And it is totally up to you what you will choose. And I will not tell you what you should choose, but I will tell you kind of what it looks like to have an idea, but that is your choice. And I will say, do with that what you will, but this is the way it's coming to me, and this is what's popping up. So I trust that if you show up, you must be ready to receive as you are, and that's how it comes about. But that's the way I say it. It's like I see some things, but it's up to you what you do with this and how you go about that. That's the way, because it's almost like there's different paths and different twists and turns that it could come about, but it's all based on what you actively choose. Truly, that's our gift from the universe.
Wow. So essentially, you're like the Oracle in the Matrix. You're basically um, that's a really crappy movie reference. No, but like legitimately, the line that I love to use a lot is, "I can only show you the door. You have to walk through it." It's one of the lines in that movie that I love. And it kind of plays into what you're saying is you can see kind of the choices or maybe some of the things that are coming up. You can't necessarily say how they're going to turn out per se. Like you're basically saying you're going to have three options. You'd be probably brilliant for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I'm going to know all the questions because you're going to give me all the options. No, like legitimately though, it is one of those things. It's people are gonna have a conversation with you and go, well, why don't you know that? Like, why is that not something that you're a psychic? Like you're supposed to know this. This is why I came to you. Why aren't you telling me like if I take this job, is it going to make me a millionaire? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like if I take this job, am I going to be successful? How long is it going to take for me to find a job? Like these questions are indefinite, but you can give them a fair idea. You can't give them like,
Definitely. Yeah. I'll be like, well, based on what I definitely feel from where you are now, or what is most likely from what where you were picked from where you are. That's the way I kind of word it. But it definitely depends on, because, like, for any instance, you can switch, and that gives you an opportunity to create something else. But a lot of people just assume or believe that they're really stuck in a loop, and therefore they're manifesting the loop. So this definitely
yeah,
plays out.
yeah, you gotta say, so positivity is a massive thing, and it's not just a mindset. It's like you said, you're manifesting your success by being positive about where you're going and what you're doing and all that stuff. So going forward, like what's the next step for you? Your business is obviously doing very well. You're very successful at what you do. What is the next step for you? Are you going down the road of teaching people how to be or embrace their quote unquote powers, or are you are you developing a new business plan, or what's the future hold for you? And I'm not asking you to be a psychic for your future. I'm asking I'm asking you to tell me maybe what your future plans are.
Yes. So I've definitely done some deep soul searching lately, and I feel like it kind of comes about when you're naturally starting a business or officializing it, which is what happens. And I realized during my time that I don't want to be the psychic medium that can read anybody, and I'm so spot like that's not what drives me. What drives me is being as I am and being able to make a difference in someone else's life. And I realized the way I actually love doing that is by teaching other intuitives, mystics, and healers how to identify their blocks, how to develop their gifts, connect with their spirit guides, manifest what they want, just to be able to empower themselves, share their gifts with the world, or spread that knowledge. That literally lights me up. And I feel that that's going to be my next shift because I want, it's not just a want no more. I feel that if I was to pass, I would be at peace with all that I've accomplished with myself. But if I was to pass, I would regret not sharing all my knowledge and experience to pass it down. And I want that to be for the masses. I don't want to gatekeep that. And I want it to be accessible. I don't believe in making like a course or whatever for like $1,000. Like that's not me. I want this to be for everybody, accessible, so long as they choose. And I want to create a safe space or a community to build this. So I'm definitely doing some collaborating with Spirit to make this happen, but I have a very strong idea on where I want to take that.
Awesome. So I guess we've spoken a lot about your past, kind of what brought you down this road. What are your favorite things about being a psychic and a medium? I mean, we've talked about the scary things and the things that make you go and the things that go bump in the night, I guess. What are the things that kind of excite you about what you do? Because I know, there's a lot of jokesters and there's a lot of misconceptions and all that kind of stuff that, you have to overcome on a daily basis, I'm sure. But from a career standpoint, to what gets you out of bed in the morning? I mean, you're doing this on a daily basis. This is a career for you. What is it that really kind of resonates with you that you just want to stay doing this?
It's honestly seeing that like light switch, like that light come back to their eyes and just their face where it's like, whoa, that's right on the head. Like that's undeniable. Like just when you are validating someone's experience, what they may have thought or hunched, or just giving them that piece of wow, like that makes sense. Like we're just piecing together, like demystifying the confusion, giving them actual concrete steps of, yeah, this is possible. You can do this for yourself. Like it's just I love being able to like be able to see that in others and be able to empower others. That's honestly what lights me up. It's just being able to have that safe space and help people be able to do that. Whether that's just understanding what that entails or actually giving advice and steps on how to do that. It's just that honestly is the most rewarding. And yes, I do get paid, but I don't, it's not necessarily like the money where it's like, that's it. It's more so of, okay, that comes with it. But the work, it's truly something that, like you said, you're motivated and you're passionate and it drives you. And when you love your work, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like, oh, well, I'm just being myself, my full self. I get to share that with someone else and they're seeking that. And I actually get to help someone just being my full self. Like that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love a job like that, to be honest with you. Anything that you can feel your full self and feel like that you're valued and that what you're doing isn't just for the money. It's actually because it resonates with you and it kind of makes you feel good inside and not just pay the bills, I suppose. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, when you're receiving a lot of clients, as a medium, you find people who of all kind of situations, but as a psychic as well, how many of your clients are business versus personal? Like, do you have a lot of businesses or entrepreneurs coming to you, and what are the questions and guidance that they receive? I know we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, but like, what is the biggest advice and things that you're given to these entrepreneurs or business owners?
Oh yeah, I definitely do get a bit of entrepreneurs. I would say like maybe a third of my client base, I would say. So that's a pretty decent number. But as far as when they're coming with me, it's usually things like, okay, where do you see my business going from to the future? Is this a good idea, or what do you feel from this idea, or where I want to take with this? Like, you know, they may also ask me, do you see, there may be like maybe a legal situation that has come up quite a bit where it's like a legal thing. It's like, hey, how do you think this is going to play out? So it's typically like future based or what do you feel from this? And then sometimes it could even be, um, should I start another project or another business? So it's just typically stuff about either starting or validating what is, and just picking up on that type of stuff is usually what that entails. But a lot of the entrepreneurs, they understand that the more that they invest and do for themselves, the better their business is. And that's also the other half of that reading is besides just getting clarity on the business and the way the insight and the future and all that goes is how can I just better myself so I can also do better within my business and the work that I do. So that's typically what that type of clientele that involves.
All right. Thank you for that answer. And I know that there are people watching who appreciate that, just because business owners and entrepreneurs alike, there's a lot of instances where you're kind of unsure, relationships and things end, and then you're kind of up shit creek, so to speak, and you don't know what you're going to do, and you're kind of left financially in hot water, and you don't know whether to continue with the business that initially was a joint venture, or not. And it's always reassuring to find somebody who, I say the phrase, can see into the future really tentatively, but can see kind of where the path is leading. Because it's a scary kind of situation. Speaking of relationships, is that something that comes up a lot for people? Not necessarily on a medium level, but like, maybe as a medium level, maybe they're looking for advice from beyond, like, hey grandma, what do you think of this
Yeah.
dude?
My goodness, like honestly, that's one of the most top tier questions. But to be honest with you, this is the part I don't disclose, but I might as well because I'm feeling the need to. Um, for me, I can't speak for other readers, but for me, love readings in general or anything about a connection, friends, romantic, business partners, just people connections to me is the easiest type of reading. Like personally, that's like the most low effort reading for me. Not a brag, that's just a fact for me. So, and it's also one of the most commonly asked. So for me, I'm just like, oh, that's fine. No judgment. And sometimes there will be clients that will come back to back. They'll have different readings, but it will always be the same person or situation. I'm like, hey, I will not judge. This may be the seventh time you're asking me. My only thing is, I just want you to know, please don't become dependent on me. But if this is what you're paying for and you want me to, then I will address it because you deserve to have that weighs heavy within your heart and your mind. But yeah.
All right, all right. So we're taking stock of the things, and the reason I'm asking these questions is because uh, there's a lot of there's a lot of stigma attached to what you do. It's much like maybe 5 or 6 years ago when, maybe even before, because you know going to see a counselor or going to see a psychologist or whatever, to help you through your depression and things like that. That same stigma that was attached to that is now attached to what you do, because people are almost embarrassed, or afraid to bring up, hey, yeah, I went to see a psychic to help me through my relationship struggles, or I went to see a medium because I was struggling with my grief, and I needed to kind of be at peace with what had happened. Because the knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people who are fearful of the unknown is, what would you do? Sure, that's just money grabbing. Like that's just money grabbing. Sure, what does she know? How is she? Sure, if she has divine intervention, how is that possible? Like if she had divine intervention, why'd she be talking to you? She could win the lottery, or she could do something more productive with her day. That kind of, the rebuttals and the walls are put up, and it's this constant wall that you have to kind of chisel away at, because the stigma that is attached to your profession is that there's a lot of disbelievers. There's a lot of people that, okay, prove it. It's like being a magician. Okay, show me magic isn't real. Prove it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's that same awful. It's almost like it's the innocent until proven it guilty. It's not true until you prove that it is true, kind of thing.
Yeah, and honestly, it's that very reason why I always tell my clients when we're first connecting, I prefer that you don't tell me nothing like about your situation or a person. If you want me to, you can give me a general thing like focus on career or to see what you see in my love life. Like you don't even have to tell me if you're in something or like just tell me a general thing, and just from that, I will pick. Or you want me to focus on you? What's your first and last name? Okay, don't tell me nothing more. I don't need your birthday. No, I don't need no backstory. Let me focus. And that's why I prefer it that way. So I'm like, you could tell me something specific, but don't tell me this, don't tell me the all ins and outs. Please do not. I don't want that to affect me. Let me just connect to the way it is and we'll go from there. Like that's why I do it like that. Because I'm like, hey, because if you're asking all these questions and you're telling people all that extra information, how do you know that they're not pulling from that? So I'm telling you,
Yeah.
viewers, regardless if you're coming to me or another person, like another reader, it is not smart as a client to be spilling too much information that's not necessary. Okay, there's different readers, but don't tell them too much, especially of a whole story. They don't need a backstory. Just tell them a general intention and allow that to flow. Like, don't feed them nothing. Don't spoon feed your readers, because especially if you've never connected with them before, you'll never know really how strong or confident or where their skills are at if you're feeding them all this information.
Yeah, it's again, it plays into, we've spoken about Darren Brown. Scott, I don't know if he's still listening or not, but if he knows who Darren Brown is, he's pretty famous in the medium psychic world, because he basically, he wasn't out to defame anybody, but he was out to kind of show that there are good psychics and there are bad psychics, and there are good mediums and there are bad mediums, and there are people who are trying to steal your money and just kind of exploit those emotions that you're going through, and there are people who are not trying to do that, that are basing it from a good place. And one of the things he does is he sat in a room full of people, and it was a medium type reading, and he's sitting there and he's very quiet, and he starts, if you listen carefully, he'll say this is the person that passed quite recently, and so he's very observant, and so and then he'll say, and he's non-specific about his details, so he'll be like, person that passed quite recently could be literally everyone in the room. Person is wearing a scarf and a hat, and then all of a sudden he sees kind of movement over in this direction, and then he's like, oh, are we connecting here? And then all of a sudden they're coming to him saying, yeah, my uncle wore a hat and a scarf. It's like, these kind of people are out there and they're exploiting that vulnerability in people, which is a scary thing. So the reason why I wanted to do this live with you is because through connecting through Facebook and speaking to you over a long period of time, all the way up to this, you're a good person. It's coming from a good place. I want people to hear that all of these things that you're doing are legitimate. They're not like, you're not doing this to kind of hoodwink people into thinking that you can see the future, or make people believe that they're going to be able to speak to a lost loved one and exploit their emotions. You're really doing this from a good place. You've made this a business. You've made this your sole livelihood, but you're also doing it, like you said earlier. The money is just a byproduct of the mission, which is connecting with people and doing good in the world. So I'm really glad that we were able to do this. So I'm going to open the forum to the people who are watching. I know we have a few viewers. There's opportunity for questions, obviously, throughout the show. So if you have questions, please do ask, because these are the moments that you can kind of, it's a non-committal kind of situation, because if you're unsure about whether you want to speak to a medium or a psychic, you can ask these questions right now, and you're not necessarily being put on blast, so to speak, because this is just a text forum. You're not, and just like Amy earlier, she wanted to know just how we go about it. Is there a medical form? Do you have to fill out what you had for breakfast and who your insurance carrier is and all that kind of fun stuff? There's a lot of people that don't know how to go about approaching a medium or a psychic, and it can be quite daunting. Like I was saying, there's stigma attached to that, which is Scott just said Natasha rarely bites people. Rarely indicates that she bites them sometimes, Scott. So I don't know. I don't know how that's an encouragement. But I think moving on from that, because I did want to address the elephant in the room, so to speak, because it is a subject that people are somewhat uncomfortable, but there's also a lot of interest. Like I spoke to you earlier about my wife being very interested in it, and there's a lot of documentaries now and people who are on Netflix and that kind of thing. That there's Scott's really going at it tonight. The odds are slim that she will bite you. So that is a sales statement right there. Come and deal with Natasha. The odds are slim that she will bite you. There you go. But for people who are, I guess, interested in the field, what is the advice that you would give for people who are kind of not sure whether they have these abilities or not? Like, what are the telltale signs? I know we're creeping over the hour right now, so I'm very conscious of the time, because you're on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast, so it's a lot earlier for me than it is for you. But what is the advice for you to people who are nervous about being clients, and also people who are kind of unsure whether they have these abilities and want to explore that side of the table as well?
Okay. Well, if you are a client who is interested in like connecting with intuitive reader, I definitely recommend, first of all, doing research on that reader. Just generally try to figure out like, what, like who they are as a person and what they stand for within their work, and just truly question, or just allow yourself to really respond. How do I feel within this person's presence? Do I feel any heaviness or any, like, like any resistance? Do I feel kind of iffy, or like I don't like, like, does it feel kind of weird? Or do I feel like content, at peace? Like I feel like I resonate and feel safe. Like those things are very important to understand how you may, respond and pick up on, like, to somebody else, because that is your soul and your energy truly responding to theirs, even if you're not consciously aware of it. So I just really recommend that you truly allow yourself to truly pick a reader that you feel calm and present with and safe so that you can, connect to the intentions or get the clarity and guidance that you want. Now, as far as the people that are really wondering, well, how do I know if I have gifts and how can I go about trying to go down that path to developing or connecting with them? This is actually a question I get a lot because I just, I always love and feel for my intuitives and my mystics and healers. So the first thing I always say is if you are having experiences where you're kind of picking up on something, but it's not a physical thing, it's just, I'm trying to say this in a way that makes sense. When you, as a sensitive or intuitive, is picking up on things, there's different ways that can come about because we have intuitive senses, which are the counterparts of our physical. So you really have to understand how do you pick up on energy or just, yeah, whether that's a download or just feeling it. So that could be like a thought, idea, or perspective that's being implanted in your mind as your own. You could be hearing something, whether that's ringing ears or an earache, sometimes even ears popping, or maybe you actually hear something, or maybe spirit speaking through somebody else, or it's a song playing on the radio. Sometimes it could be more like a gut feeling, like it's just like a hunch. You just like know it in your bones. Other times it could be goosebumps, like a validation of something, like a truth. Sometimes you can see something within your mind's eye, whether that's a daydream or a little vision. Like there's different ways that we pick up on it. So it's not really a question of is this really real or not. The real question is, how do you like what is your go-to or regular way, your natural way of feeling or picking up on this and really understanding if this is my go-to way, then this is more so of what I'm comfortable with. But in actuality, everyone is capable of connecting with their intuition and everyone is capable of developing it. It's just not everyone chooses to really go there. Some people can deny or suppress it or overlook it. Some people it just totally scares them. So it really just boils down to will I really allow myself to really trust on what I feel and what I'm picking up, or will I totally discredit it, downplay it, and just focus on what's physical and what my logic or what other people are telling me. Like that's typically what it boils down to.
Wow. Um, I don't know why I haven't asked this already, but who inspires you and who inspired you to like who was the person that you went to kind of find guidance? Because they need to be given credit as well because you're amazing. Like you're an amazing person, but I'm sure the guidance they gave you was helpful for your ascension into what you've become right now. So like that's the question. Who inspired you and who continues to inspire you? Could be the same answer.
So she's no longer in my life. It's just kind of circumstantial, not really a falling out, but I will definitely proudly share her name. She was my first mentor. Her name is Shelly Bradley. I'm putting it out there in the universe. And she taught me essentially how to channel my spirit guides when I was scared and did not know how. She would simply just speak with me and channel for me, basically. But eventually, I started becoming familiar with the energy that she was channeling. And over time, I understood okay, this is the energy. I recognize that this is not something else. And eventually, I started embracing that and becoming safe. And then I got so good or confident. Eventually, I was reading for her, channeling her, and eventually it flipped the scripts where eventually I was mostly channeling for her and then also for myself, and she was more so like in her deep feels, kind of really questioning herself. But she really inspired me to like like it's possible for you, you're capable, and that I don't have to be scared of what I am and just to really go through this, because the time I met her was really when I was going deep into my mediumship and my astral travel. And I was so scared because I was like, this is totally different from just seeing stuff, and feeling stuff. So um, it was a whole other ball game, but she really just made me feel safe. Like, hey, you're not crazy. I understand. This is why it's happening. And she just, really made me feel like, okay, this is something I can get into and I don't have to be scared. So I'm very grateful for her. And that's really what the beginning of it was for me.
Awesome. And then continuing on from that, even though she's not in your life, is that where you draw your inspiration from now?
Yeah, especially recently as I rediscovered my love for teaching. I really discovered, why was she so impactful? And it was because she was the support and the guidance um, for me to pursue these things. But ultimately, she was just there to really help me just do for myself. And I really would love to be that for others. And, over time, I realized I really was, but I feel that I'm now in the moment in my life where I'm ready to claim that role and to create that space more intentionally and mindfully.
Alrighty. So for all the people who have listened tonight, and for those who are watching back on YouTube later, I'm going to be posting obviously all your links and everything, so they can connect with you. But just because we have some people still watching, by the way, you still can ask questions if you're interested in asking questions. Don't be afraid. She doesn't bite, even though somebody says it may happen occasionally. This is only a virtual format, so you've no fear of anyone jumping through the screen or anything like that. You still have the opportunity to ask questions. Please give us your social media and your website, just so people can find you easily.
Yes, so you can find my website. It's just www.psychicmediumnatasha.com. And then for Facebook, it's Psychic Medium Natasha LLC. As far as every other platform, considering TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, Instagram, that's going to be at Psychic Medium Natasha.
Alrighty. And there we go. I have that scrolling underneath. Did that spell right? I think that spelled right. Yeah. I'm not that bad at spelling. Psychic Medium Natasha.
Yeah, it looks good. I don't see no typos, so it looks good.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah. So that's the website to go to for anyone who's interested in just connecting. I mean, you're such an amazing guest. You're an awesome person to interact with. I encourage anyone that is looking for any guidance in psychic or medium or whatever that may be. I think you're just awesome. I think this whole video that's going to be on YouTube that people can watch back, and the people who've sat here tonight with us and have asked questions and supported you, you've already impacted so many people that they've jumped on tonight. It's you're awesome, and it's really nice to learn your backstory and kind of ask questions that maybe haven't been answered before about the psychic and medium kind of field, because there are a lot of misconceptions. So I'm hopeful that we've kind of watered those down or gotten rid of them tonight with this awesome interview. Thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. This was a huge success based off of our viewers. So I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. That has been another Unscripted Perspective with me, your host, Phil Parker. We'll have another live next month. Natasha is our second live. It's going to be a series of lives. This format seems to work great. I'm using a different. Scott says good night and he loves you, just in case. I don't know if you see those comments. Yeah, we do have another guest coming on next month. He's a magician. I've actually done a recorded podcast with him, which will be out prior to our live, but another opportunity to test the live waters, so to speak, and see what happens. But next week, as always, there will be another recorded episode released on all your podcast forums. And as I always say, go with grace, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening, and be sure to leave us a rating or review on your favorite listening platform.
Be sure to keep in touch with us on Facebook and Instagram at
The Unscripted Perspective,
or you can visit us at
www.theunscriptedperspective.com.